We're going to continue today in our Jesus Encounter series. My name is Dave, and I'm one of the pastors here. And yes, I got 2 weeks in a row. So I've been asked that. People are like, "Oh, 2 weeks, huh?" And it's crazy. I know, it's wild. Anyway, I'm excited for today. We're going to dive into something, and I just want to point out that your note sheet today is going to feel a little different. The 4 points that you're going to get are towards the end of the message. So if you're like a person that stares at the screen waiting to fill in, you're going to be terrified because those aren't happening until the very end. But I just want to encourage you to write down whatever you feel. So stuff's going to come up on the screen. It's not on your notes, but you can write it down. You can write your own stuff, whatever you feel like God's saying to you. Maybe something I said, maybe you're like, man, he should have said it this way. Feel free to write that down and share it with me later. Or it's just your grocery list. It doesn't matter to me what you write. I just hope that you'll lean in and just dial in for this morning. I oftentimes will sit and have conversations with my wife, and we'll talk through kind of what the message is if I'm preaching that week. And we used to do this a lot back when we were church planting, and I would walk her through my sermon, and she would kind of tell me, yeah, you probably shouldn't say it that way, or maybe avoid that whole story, or whatever it is. Today, I was actually talking to her, and she was like, wow, you're really telling all of your bad experiences in life. And so I got another one for you. And so I've got a lot of negative experiences, I think. Anyway, we're going to talk today about faith and how it really is faith over fear. Because sometimes we allow things to creep up in our life, and we hinge our faith and our belief on something that we're afraid of, or something we're afraid to do, or maybe a belief that we're kind of shaky on. And so what we do is we tend to push our faith down to the level of our fear. And I want to talk about that today through a really amazing Jesus encounter. But before we get to that, I was trying to think of some of the times in my own life where something that happened and moments that happened where it goes from bad to worse. And I just kept thinking of so many different examples. But one of the ones that I wanted to share today really comes down to this really critical moment of just life for us, of ministry for us. I was relatively young, and we had just finished working at a church up in Toledo for the first 6 or so years of ministry. We decided that we were going to come back to Columbus, and we were going to help some friends plant a church here in Columbus on the east side of town. Still happening. It's still going great, and God blessed it. And so when we moved here, we were like, well, we're going to be part of this church plant, but it's a church plant, and it has no money, so I've got to go get a job. And so I went and got a regular job, marketplace job at a telecommunications firm where we sold direct sales, door-to-door sales to businesses. And so I was a business-to-business direct sales telecom guy. Went to doors and knocked on doors, called people, tried to get appointments. Eventually, I would move from direct sales to account management. But I spent 3 years serving in this job while trying to help plant this church, while also having kids, while also renovating a house. So life was a little chaotic for us. We were in the throes of all of it. About a year and a half into the church plant, we really felt that it just was no longer the right fit for us. We decided to just kind of bow out gracefully. And so my wife and I and our kids, we kind of stepped out. And we spent about a year and a half outside of full-time ministry. So I was just working this telecommunications job, just going to the office every day, 9 to 5, just grinding, coming home at night, all this stuff. And then one day I walk into my office downtown and come in, sit down in my seat, and my manager comes out. I had a new manager at that time, and he came out. He's like, hey, Dave, you got a minute? And I'm like, yeah. And I come into his office, and he just looks at me over the desk and says, hey, just so you know, today's going to be your last day. And I was like, oh, okay. Any reason for that? And he's like, well, and he kind of said a few things, which, if you work in the state of Ohio, you can get let go from a job really for any reason. And so it really was not a good reason. There was nothing really bad that ever happened. And so anyway, he handed me a box, classic paper box. He then walked me to my desk, and I took all of my personal things. He looked at everything that I took before I put it in my box to make sure I wasn't stealing company secrets, which there were none. And so he stood there, and then he walked me to the elevator. And he's like, well, I'll just ride down with you. And I was like, I'd rather you not. And he just decided to get into the elevator with me. So we rode down, and I had all these thoughts that were impure thoughts in my mind of things that I could do to him in the few moments that we were in the elevator together. I chose not to. He walked me to the front door. I walked out, got in my car, and I remember just sitting there. I remember just sitting in my car. And at the time, my wife is home, pregnant with number 4. I'm now jobless. We've got 3 kids, one on the way. And I call her and I go, hey, I'm going to be home early. And she's like, oh, awesome. And she was so excited I was coming home early. And I was like, well, I'll tell you what happened later. And so I drive home. And it was a rough drive home. I'll just say that. It was a rough few weeks. And I remember having this conversation with Carrie after a few weeks of kind of just dealing with everything. And I just say, you know, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. Like, I don't know. And at some point, I remember going out and I had this conversation with God. It was very one-sided. It was me yelling at God because I felt like God had kind of let me go, that he had taken me to a place and then just kind of let his hands off, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do anymore. And I remember having this moment where I looked at Carrie and I just said, I don't know what we're supposed to do. And after some time with Jesus and some hard conversations, I felt like God spoke to me very clearly. And just said, your time off is done. And so I walked in. I remember just looking at Carrie, just going, I think we're just supposed to be back in ministry. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why I'm working telecom. I hate this. I hate it so much. Hate everything about it. I think we're just supposed to be back in ministry. And she's like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I have no idea. But we just need to get back. I felt like God just said, your time off is over. I don't know if you ever had one of those moments where you just thought, like, God, if you were ever going to do something in my life, if you were ever going to act on my behalf, like right now would be a great time to do it. And I was just having one of those moments of just, God, if you're going to do something, would you just please do it? And as I'm having these thoughts, everything in my life is falling apart. Everything around me is crumbling. And I finally just get to this point, and it was just one of those moments where God just kind of takes over and belief takes over. And I don't know if I necessarily had the faith to fully commit, but I felt like I could just believe that God is good. And if he's been good, then he'll stay good. And somehow I can just trust him. And in that moment, belief and faith just felt like it was incredibly risky. It was foolish. And it was in that season that we just started to look, and God guided us to a church on the other side of the country that we would eventually Tyler would be born, our 4th would be born, and we would literally fly across the country like moments after his birth to go move to a place where we knew no one. And it was crazy. It was the wildest thing we've ever done. It was the biggest decision we had ever made, but it was 100% God's direction. And I think we can all share in this experience because at some point, you and I, we both have had these moments of fear, of disappointment. We've walked through these different feelings where Jesus didn't show up. God didn't move on our behalf. What we thought was going to happen didn't happen. We prayed about it. It didn't work out. We threw all of our prayers up and it felt like they were just hitting a glass ceiling and nothing was happening and there was no acting on our behalf. And somehow we got to this thought of even like God just doesn't care about us anymore. I don't know if you've ever been there. But it's a terrifying spot to find yourself. It's terrifying to get into that place where you just feel like, God, I don't know what you want. I have no idea what's next. But I'm going to try to trust you. I'm going to try. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to at least try. And I think we've all had these moments. We've all had delays. We've all had prayers that went unanswered. We've all had a diagnosis that was received that we thought wouldn't be what it ended up being. We all have had relationships that have ended and broken and fallen apart that we thought would last forever. And at some point, we start to lose hope and we start to think that, well, if I keep waiting, maybe it'll happen. But as the wait continues, the fear begins to creep in. And sometimes the worst thing actually does happen. The thing that you fear the most actually does end up taking place. We don't just imagine the loss, we experience the loss. We don't just imagine what the fear would be like if our relationship was broken. Our relationship ends up getting broken. And then we experience all of the pain that comes with it. And I think it's in those moments that Jesus' words to this broken-hearted father become so real, become so relevant. Because there's this father that we're going to see in this encounter today with Jesus, who has all the hope in the world, all the faith in the world, and suddenly his faith is crushed, and his hope is crushed. And the worst case scenario happens. And he's left with a now what? But he's really left with these words from Jesus. Don't be afraid, just believe. He's left with these words from Jesus. Don't be afraid, just believe. And I believe fully that there is somebody in this space right now. There's somebody watching online or listening on a podcast. And you just need to hear these words, because these are Jesus' words to you today. Don't be afraid. Just believe. The encounter is Jesus and a man by the name of Jairus. And it's in the Gospel of Mark. It's this beautifully written gospel, Mark chapter 5. There's several verses. We're going to look through them together. We're going to unpack it as we kind of walk through this passage together. And there is so much happening in this story that we can't dive into all of it. There's a whole extra encounter that happens in the middle of the encounter of Jesus and Jairus, but we're not going to spend too much time on that one, because I want to focus on what Jesus is speaking and then ultimately what he does for this man named Jairus. So if you have a Bible, if you have an app, go ahead and go to Mark chapter 5, verse 21. We're going to look at 21 to 43 is where we're going to be. But let me give you a little bit of context to get us up to where we are. Right at the beginning of Mark chapter 5, Jesus just healed this demonic man. He's cast out the demon on the other side of the lake. They get into a boat. They row across the shore. And they're surrounded, it says in Scripture, by another great crowd. So there's a group of people that's just waiting for Jesus. And so Jesus comes ashore. This would be in the area of Capernaum. We would oftentimes, and most scholars would agree, that Capernaum was kind of Jesus' headquarters. It was the place that he would oftentimes come back to. It was probably the place that he spent the most time with his disciples, in Capernaum. So the temple there, the synagogue there, it would have been where Jesus went to church, so to speak. He would have been familiar with those who were in the synagogue. Jesus knew this town. He knew the people. They would be familiar with him. And so he kept coming back to this area of Capernaum. And so it says that there's this man named Jairus who was a synagogue leader. He was one of the leaders, a man of influence. And this man of influence is going to come to Jesus. He's going to throw himself at Jesus' feet because his daughter is sick. His daughter is dying. And he needs Jesus to heal his daughter. And so you can imagine the controversy in this moment of a Jewish synagogue leader coming to the feet of Jesus, the Messiah, the proclaimed Messiah, who many of his fellow co-workers, so to speak, they wanted Jesus gone. They thought he was a false teacher. But this man is going to come to Jesus. He's going to fall at Jesus' feet. He's going to beg Jesus to come and heal his daughter. And Jesus says, yes. He says, sure, let's go. And without a whole lot of dialogue, Jesus just says, yeah, let's go. And so they get up and they just start walking back to Jairus' house where his daughter is lying sick. And along the way, he's going to get interrupted by a woman with an issue of blood. You maybe have heard that story before, but this woman has an issue of blood. She's been bleeding. She's been hemorrhaging for about 12 years. There's this amazing correlation. I don't have time to get into all of it, but her issue of blood was 12 years long, and this little girl was 12 years old. Jesus refers to them both by daughter, and he uses the exact same word when he does it in Hebrew, which you wouldn't have normally done to an adult woman. You wouldn't have referred to her daughter in the same way that you would a child, but Jesus does. And there's this amazing kind of moment that's happening between this woman that comes to Jesus that falls down at his feet and this man whose daughter is dying at home in bed. So there's these two encounters, but we're going to focus on the one. And the narrative that is provided here in Mark chapter 5, it demonstrates that while suffering can isolate and overwhelm us, that faith in Jesus, in his reality, and in his timing, he can provide everything that we need. in Jesus' timing, he can provide everything that you need in your worst case scenario, if you and I would just believe. So it's in this encounter that we'll experience delay. Oftentimes we'll experience delay, we'll experience distraction. And what we're going to see in a moment is that we can also experience devastation. And I think it's in these unexpected moments, it's in these moments that we least expect it to happen, it's when we have the greatest Jesus encounters, isn't it? It's when we get to our lowest, it's when we get to the spot where we start to lose hope, we start to feel frustrated, we're full of fear and anxiety and worry, we don't know where it's going to come from. It's oftentimes in those unexpected low moments that we have our greatest Jesus encounters. So I want to give you kind of 5 thoughts as we sift through this story this morning. Number 1 would be Jairus' desperation. See, Jairus is going to come to Jesus, and he's full of desperation. Look at Mark 5:22-24. It says it this way. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet, and he implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him, and a great crowd followed him, and thronged, pushed in, pressed in about him. I mean, just think about it. This man comes to Jesus, again, synagogue leader. You would never be caught dead doing this, but he falls at Jesus' feet and he says, "Look, my daughter's at home. She's dying. She's not just sick, she's dying. I need your help, Jesus." And with no back and forth conversation, Jesus just says, "Let's go." He actually didn't say anything. He may have just gestured, like, "Let's go. What are you waiting on? Let's go." Like, he just get on with it. And so Jesus just starts to go. And so Jairus risks everything. Think about it. He risks reputation. He was a prominent figure. He was a respected individual. He was looked up to in the synagogue system and that culture. And he falls at Jesus' feet as an act of surrender, a sign of desperation, because he has nowhere else to go but Jesus. See, sometimes our faith starts in desperation. See, sometimes our faith actually begins at that moment of just complete desperation. It's when your pain leads to God's presence. See, oftentimes it's the pain that we experience in life that guides us, that leads us, that points us to God's presence. And then it's really up to us whether or not we step into that. And so this man, Jairus, he believes that Jesus can heal his daughter, and he fully expects Jesus to do it before she dies. I mean, do you see that? He's coming to Jesus and saying, "Look, she's dying. I need you to come and heal her before she dies." That would be the preferred method, Jesus, before she dies. But look at number 2. It's Jesus' delay. So you have Jairus' desperation, and then you have Jesus' delay. Mark 5:25-34. It says, "And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. And she had heard the reports about Jesus, and she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment." Now, just pause right there just for context. If she had tried everything possible, that means she more than likely would have gone to the synagogue, and she had gone through all the ritual cleansings, the promised healings, that you could do certain things to be healed. And so it's not a stretch, it's not there in Scripture, but we could infer that Jairus would have known who this woman was. If she had an issue of blood for 12 years, he would have seen her, he would have met her, he would have probably performed the ceremonies over her for her healing. And at the same time, at some point, she had to be declared unclean because of the discharge. She would have been unclean, and Jairus may have been the one to declare her unclean. So again, it's all in the same community. It's all in the same city area, Capernaum. And so all of this is happening in a place where everybody kind of knows everybody. And everybody would have known this woman. Jairus should have known who this woman was. And I think that is so critical to understand in what we're getting ready to see happen. Verse 27, so she had heard the reports about Jesus. And she comes up behind him in a crowd, and she touches his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garment, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turns about in the crowd and he says, who touched my garments? Who touched me? This is like if you have a brand new pair of shoes and you're just walking and somebody steps on the back of your shoe and you're immediately like, who just scuffed my shoe? Like, who just did that? Because I'm getting ready to throw down. Jesus isn't going to throw down, but Jesus wants to have a conversation with whoever just touched him. Jesus, again, perceived who touched my garments, and his disciples are like, Jesus, do you notice the crowd? Like, you see the whole crowd pressing in around you, and yet you say, who touched me? And he looked about it to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had just happened to her, like, she knows that she was healed. She feels the healing happening in her body. She came in fear and trembling, in respect and reverence, and she falls down before him. The second time a person has fallen down at the feet of Jesus in this story. And she tells him the whole truth. And then look what Jesus says to her. Daughter, again, the same word that he would use for Jairus' daughter. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. See, Jesus stops to heal and talk to this woman. And again, it's interesting. It's the 12 years of the issue of blood. It's the 12-year-old daughter. And there's this whole moment where Jairus would have known who this woman was because Jairus is still there, right? Jesus and Jairus are going back to Jairus' house. So as this whole healing is happening, you can imagine Jairus standing here and he's full of hope, but then he's looking and he's like, wait, what's going on? Jesus, why are we stopping? Like, we're going to heal my daughter, aren't we? Like, I asked you to heal my daughter and you just like said, yeah, you pointed and now no, we're on our way. So why are you stopping and doing this miracle for someone else? I don't think it's a stretch to imagine if I'm Jairus and if you're Jairus, you're thinking, why is she getting my miracle right now? Like, that's supposed to go to my daughter. Why is she getting this? And I think there's this whole thing happening, and Jesus was so good at doing this. He's like, look at the woman that you have declared unclean, and I'm telling her that it's her faith that has made her well. So Jairus, just have faith like this unclean woman. Have faith like this outcast woman, Jairus. If you'll just believe like she believes, even though you're in the synagogue, on the spiritual ladder, you're way up here, and she's so far down here. So while this woman is being healed, Jairus is just waiting. Thinking, I got here first. Dibs. I got dibs on the miracle. Why are you taking it? You see, sometimes God blesses others while we are still breaking. And that is so hard for you and I to watch. It is so hard to watch someone else get a breakthrough, somebody else get a healing, somebody else get a blessing in their life when we're just waiting and we feel like everything inside of us is still breaking. It's so hard to watch, but think about this. It's all in Jesus' timing, isn't it? It's all in his timing. It's not in yours. It's not in mine. And Jesus' timing often challenges our trust, doesn't it? Do I really trust? Do I really believe? Do I really have faith that Jesus can do this? Because my faith is kind of attached to my perspective and my timing. See, delay in this situation and delay in your situation, delay is not denial. Delay does not mean that it's not coming your way. Delay may just be that Jesus hasn't turned his back on you. He's just not done with you yet. He still has something for you. There's still something that he wants you to see. There's still something that he wants you to feel. There's still something going on. So what if he has something bigger for you that you can't even imagine yet? But you just need to get to that place. So not only do we see Jairus' desperation and Jesus' delay, we see, thirdly, we see this devastating news. That while he was still speaking, verse 35, there came from the ruler's house, from Jairus' house, someone who said, your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? Hey, Jairus, your daughter who was dying, she's dead. Don't bother Jesus anymore. And if you're Jairus, come on, just put yourself in his shoes for a second. If you're Jairus, this is not how this was supposed to end, is it? Like, that's not what you imagined when you went and threw yourself at Jesus' feet. That's not what you were picturing. That's not what you were thinking was going to happen. You were not imagining that Jesus was going to spend time with this unclean woman and that he was going to heal her, and somehow she jumped the line and she got your blessing, and then you didn't think that your daughter was actually going to die because Jesus said he was coming with you. And if you're Jairus in this moment, you are so incredibly heartbroken. You don't know what to do because you just got this news and somebody's telling you that it's too far gone. It'll never be recovered. It's over. Leave the teacher alone. I mean, this is brutal, right? It's final. It's over. Number 4, though, look at Jesus' directive. So you got Jairus' desperation, Jesus delayed, the devastating news, and then 4, you have Jesus' directive. Verse 36. But overhearing what they said, I love that. Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, do not fear, only believe. You would imagine that Jesus is looking at Jairus and saying, hey, Jairus, don't be afraid. Believe like that unclean woman believed. Hey, Jairus, don't be afraid. Just believe. Believe that I'm going to do something that is going to blow your mind. Notice that what he's saying, do not be afraid, only believe. It's a present tense imperative. It's not a suggestion. It's actually a command from Jesus. Jesus is not saying, hey, if you feel like it, just try to push the fear aside and try to believe as much as you can. He said, no, do not fear. Hey, Jairus, do not be afraid. In fact, just believe. Jairus, just believe. And you know this as much as I do. When somebody tells you, hey, just believe. Okay, like I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. People say that kind of stuff to it. Oh, hey, don't worry. Okay. It doesn't make us not worry. It helps us reframe a little bit maybe, but it's in this moment. It's faith in the midst of doubt. It's faith in the midst of bad news. It's faith in the midst of a negative report. And what I see here is that Jesus doesn't deny the reality of what's happening. And Jesus doesn't deny your reality. What he does, though, is he introduces a greater one. And so Jesus is saying, look, I understand what's happening, Jairus. I see what's going on. I understand what's happening. I'm just going to introduce you to a bigger, newer, better reality. And then finally, the 5th thing is this. It's a personal resurrection that happens. It's a personal resurrection. The rest of the passage in Mark 5, starting at verse 37, it says it this way. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. So Jesus took his inner circle. He had 3 that were closer to him than all the other 12. Peter, James, and John, they got to experience things that some of the other disciples never got to experience or see firsthand. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw this commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And if you don't know this, there's actually a tradition in this time period where you would hire professional mourners, and they would come to the house and they would cry and they would weep and they would make a commotion to let everyone else know. And because Jairus is an important figure, there would have been a large commotion outside of his house. These are people that aren't connected to Jairus. These are people that were paid to show up and to let everyone know that Jairus' daughter was dead. And when they had entered, verse 39, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." To which everybody did exactly what you and I would do. Verse 40, and they laughed at him. The crowd laughs at Jesus. They're like, Jesus, we were paid to show up because the girl's dead. We know that she's dead. She's not sleeping. And they laugh at Jesus. They almost mock Jesus. But he put them all outside. And if you have a Bible, underline that. If you have an app, highlight that. Because this is so big for us. He put them all outside, and he took the child's father, mother, and his 3 disciples into where the child was. In verse 41, he takes the little girl by the hand, and he says to her, Talitha kumi, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately, the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this. And then he told her to get her something to eat. I love the details, right? Like Jesus loves breakfast. Jesus loves it when you just get a good snack too. Like he's just all about it. So just watch this. Verse 40, Jesus removes the doubters. Jesus kicks everybody out of the room, everybody out of the house that was a doubter. See, what if the miracle in the room depended on the faith in the room? And let me just say that for your life. What if the miracle in your life depended on the faith that you surrounded yourself with? And some of us today, this is like the point that you just need to hear more than any other point. You need to get the doubters out of your life. You need to remove the people that are giving you really horrible advice, the people that are trying to speak life into you, but they're not. You need to get those people out of your circle. See, you'll have to get the doubters out of your inner circle if you want to grow in your faith. If you are constantly surrounding yourself with people that are questioning your faith, people that are trying to speak against what Jesus is doing in your life, if you're constantly surrounding yourself with the buddies at the bar who have no life to give you, can I just tell you, you're going to the wrong source. And at some point, you've got to just remove the doubters and say, I'm going to surround myself with people of faith that can speak life into me, because there's going to be moments, and let's just be very clear, there are going to be moments where your faith is tested. There are going to be moments where your fear rises and your faith diminishes, and it's in those moments that you need other people to come alongside and lift you up. This is why get in a group and on a team is such a big deal around here. You've got to surround yourself with people that are going to come alongside of you and speak life over you, not get into the muck and the mire with you and just wallow in it. You need people not to commiserate with, but to lift you up and support you. So Jesus speaks to this girl personally. Talitha kumi, little girl, I say to you, get up. And so what do we see here? We see a miracle that followed faith through fear. That's what we see. We see that this miracle was going to follow the faith of a father through his fear. He was terrified. He was afraid of what was going to happen. But he chose to hold on to his faith. And the only other people in the room, it was him and his wife and the disciples that he didn't know. See, sometimes your circle is going to have to be really small. But it's the people that have the most faith that you need to surround yourself with. So let me ask you this as we close. What fear is keeping you from continuing to believe? What fear is getting in the way of your belief? What fear is holding you back today? Now get ready to write those 4 final things, because they're coming fast. So let me challenge you with this. 4 things. Don't stop believing just because it didn't happen in your timing. These are your takeaways. These are the 4 practical things that I hope that you will walk out of here with, that you'll read through for the rest of the week, or you'll read through in the next time that you're faced with a crisis, you're faced with a challenge, your faith is diminishing. Don't stop believing just because it didn't happen in your timing. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Why? Because your understanding, my understanding, is limited. So I'm going to trust you, God, with all of my heart, all of my soul, all of my mind, all of my strength, because my understanding is limited and I want to trust you. So number 1, don't stop believing just because it didn't happen in your timing. Number 2, don't let fear rewrite your theology. Don't let your fear rewrite your belief in who God is. You hold on to who and what you know God to be. I've seen you do it in the past like this, therefore I can believe that you'll do it again. I've seen you do this for someone else. God, I believe that you can do it for me too. So don't let your fear rewrite your theology. Psalm 27:3, though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. When everything is coming against me, I can be confident in you, God, because of who you are, not because of who I am. So God, I'm not going to rewrite my theology because I'm worried or I'm anxious or I'm fearful. I'm actually going to hold on to my theology. And again, I'm going to surround myself with the right people. Number 3, Jesus hasn't changed, even if your situation has. Even though Jairus' daughter died, Jesus was the same. He was still coming to Jairus' house. Even though Jairus thought for a second, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I shouldn't even have Jesus come over. I mean, she is dead now, and I thought you were going to do it before she died. Jesus was like, hey, we're still going to your house, right? I mean, what a crazy moment that would be. Jesus hasn't changed, even if your situation has. Hebrews 13:8, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's never changed. Fourth and finally, faith isn't just trusting God before the loss. It's trusting him after it too. Sometimes we will still go through the pain of the loss. Sometimes we'll still go through the pain of whatever it was. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and he saves the crushed in spirit. And today you might feel a little crushed. Can I just tell you that Jesus is still here to save you? That you don't know what he's trying to do through your story. You don't know what miracle is just waiting on the other side of your pain. You see, after I called Carrie that day, and we talked and we prayed about it, I got alone with the Lord, and I remember asking, God, what am I doing? God, I don't know what I'm doing right now, and I don't even know what you want me to do. I'll never forget that feeling that God wasn't done with me yet. And he was calling me to do something about it. So I had to step out in faith. I had to step out in belief and see that God had something more for me. And he did. I can look back on it now and I see all these moments of where God's hand was just moving, but in the moment, man, it felt like God was not present. See, Jesus is never late. He just isn't working on your timetable. And even if something looks dead, here's what I see in this whole story. Even if something looks dead, with Jesus, it can still rise. See, looking back, I can see how Jesus didn't ignore my pain. He just had a bigger plan to move me through it. And just like Jairus, we all walk through these different moments in life when the story seems over. But can I just remind you today that for some of us in this place, Jesus is just whispering to you, even in this moment. He's whispering to your heart. He's whispering to your mind. Don't be afraid. Just believe. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't give in to the fear. Just believe.